Oh my God, guys. Oh my God. And just their third match in the WWE DI. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Motor City Machine Guns are the new tag team champions of SmackDown. Oh my God. And not only that, but we got to see the Uso brothers after a year of being split apart after Jimmy turned on Jay last year at SummerSlam. After they had their match at WrestleMania earlier this year, we got to see them two embrace. We had Roman staring on the apron as it took place. The showdown between the OC bloodline and the new bloodline is on. It's only a matter of time before Jay and Roman get back together. But what a SmackDown. Oh my God. And a SmackDown that by no means was executed the best from top to bottom. But I gotta say, the ending of this was just perfection. The Motor City Machine Guns defeated DIY to earn their number one contendership. Just last week, they were in a triple threat tag team match with A Town Down, Austin Theory, and Grayson Waller, as well as Alberto and Angel. And they won that match, which is how they got to this match. And the crowd didn't really react as much when they came out last week, but as the match progressed, they showed what they can do. I mean, these guys are not new to this game. These guys, spent a lot of time in TNA, spent a lot of time in New Japan, spent a lot of time with promotions. Chris Sabin specifically is a 10-time X Division champion. Alex Shelley, he's won his last major title in TNA was the TNA World Championship before he dropped it to Moose at Hard to Kill. So these guys are definitely not new to the game by any means. They're three-time TNA tag team champions. And so this was just a huge moment for these guys. Had a match with DIY. I honestly thought the match should have went even longer than it did. But the way that this main event played out, I completely understand why this happened the way that it did. DIY, Motor City Machine Guns had a really good match with each other. DIY were the aggressors in the beginning. Motor City Machine Guns started to pick it up at the end, and it was an inverted super kick that Johnny gave to Tommaso that ultimately led to their downfall, to losing the match, and Motor City Machine Guns wins the match. Then Bloodline comes out, Solo introduces himself, tells them to acknowledge him. Well, he tells Brooklyn to acknowledge him, and then Chris Sabin introduces them and say that they're basically ready, to handle those titles anytime, anywhere, any place. And I thought when Solo said, "Let's do the match now," that he was going to back off. Like when he said, since you came here to make an impact, a reference to their TNA run, why don't we just do the match now? I thought Solo was just going to say that and do the typical heel thing if he says it, and then he backs away, and Tom Malone and Tom Ataka, they don't defend the titles. But instead, that's not what happened. And at first, I was like, wait a minute, this is dumb. Why are they doing this? Are they gonna have Motor City Machine Guns lose just like that? I was like, why don't they just save this match for Crown Jewel or something? But the way that this played out, it made perfect sense as to why this was done and what the initial purpose was. So now they face the Bloodline, their third match in WWE together, the third match on in general with the company. And because of the fact that both Roman, Jimmy, and Jay all had beef with all of them because of Roman and Jimmy were taken out last week by the Bloodline. They were beat down. They didn't have any help. Jay did confront them early in the night last week, but he didn't come out to help at the end of the night when Jimmy was taken out and when Roman got taken out. So they came out, beat up Jacob Fatu, beat up Solo as Solo tried to get up the apron and looked as though he was going to try to distract the ref he got taken out by a man with a hoodie who ended up being Jimmy. First, I thought it was Jay because I was like, well, Jay just got screwed on Raw. So it's got to be Jay coming out. But it ended up being Jimmy. Jimmy comes out. He grabs him, takes him off the apron. Then all of a sudden, Jimmy comes and attacks Solo. Then Roman's music hits. He walks in there, hits up on Jacob. And they're just beating him up to the apron. They're out the picture. Then, the ref gets taken out by Tom and Target Tom Lower. They get the steel chairs like they're gonna try to clock Motor City Machine Guns with it. Out comes Jey Uso, also dressed up in a hoodie, in a mask. He super kicks one of them. Then he spears them, and he takes the hoodie off. We all know it's Jey Uso, and just from that, Motor City Machine Guns managed to win the tag team championships. Now, of course, the bigger story out of this is the fact that this was all done to have that moment of embracing between Jimmy and Jay. But at the same time, which I do think, they kind of pushed away the moment from doing that, of them winning the tag belts by putting the camera back on them because they deserve a lot more time than they got. But I'm still happy that they won the titles because I got to say, like, whether it's the OG bloodline, the new bloodline, even though they did drop the belts, that is the old bloodline I'm talking about. They dropped the belts to Kevin and Sami last year at WrestleMania. I don't know. It's just like they dropped the belts. Sami and Kevin, eventually they dropped it to Judgment Day, and Judgment Day held on to it up until, actually Judgment Day, they dropped it to Jay and Cody and then won it back when Jimmy screwed Jay and Cody out of the titles on Raw, which is what really built it up to his match with Jay at WrestleMania when they got screwed out of the titles. But that happened. But I don't know. I was about just ready. I hope they don't win those titles again anytime soon. I'm really just ready for it to be some fresh teams, holding those titles, because DIY, they didn't get a chance to hold it for that long. They only held it for a month. And really, even for this version of the Bloodline, Tom and Lloyd, they only held it for 2 months. But even so, I felt like they took it way too quickly from DIY. And DIY had beat A-Town down for it, but when they beat A-Town down for it, they held the belts for almost 3 months because they won it at WrestleMania when they split the titles, back separately. A title for Raw and a title for SmackDown. Because the titles have been unified ever since 2022 when the Usos beat Randy and Matt Riddle to unify them. So I just hope this is it for them, honestly. It probably won't be, but I hope it is. It's kind of like the Judgment Day right now on Raw. I hope once they lose the titles at this point that they don't win them back anytime soon at this particular point, because I think they've just kind of ran their course as champions. But man, I gotta say that this was a good moment, because you think about these guys, especially for Chris Sabin. Alex Shelley did have a brief. He has wrestled in WWE before, very briefly. I think it was a part of, was it the Dusty Rose Classic? It was in one of those tournaments. And so he's wrestling WWE. Chris Sabin, like, this is completely new for him. But like I said, these guys are not no spring chicken. These guys are not new to the game. These guys are legends. These guys, have been out for some time. And, first impressions count, because even though, some of the hardcore wrestling fans, they may know who they are, a lot of casuals don't know who they are. And, the fact that the crowd in their match with DIY was chanting for both Motor City Machine Guns and DIY, but they were mainly chanting for Motor City Machine Guns. That just shows you, how much over they are, in Brooklyn, that they were chanting for them in such an early stage in WWE. So I hope, they can keep the momentum. I do hope DIY do win the titles back at some point. Just like some of the other teams, like Pretty Deadly, they have yet to hold the goal as tag champs. So I hope this is like a time for it to be a complete refreshment for the tag team division. Um, but that probably won't be the case because one thing I've noticed since WrestleMania, they have not had either titles, Raw or SmackDown, be defended on pay per view or premium live event as they call it now. They haven't had them be defended because it's just so many titles and trips like to keep the shows short. But like I said, man, big moment. Um, Outside of this, the only other big moment was the start of the show when Randy Orton had to convince Triple H to allow him to face Kevin Owens, and Triple H wasn't trying to let him do it because he kept trying to say that he was trying to protect him from Kevin Owens, and that was a big way to start the show. Wasn't really a fan of LA Knight, you know, attacking both Carmella Hayes and Andrade, but I kind of figured it was going to lead to a triple threat match at Crown Jewel. They've been building towards that for a while, so I kind of figured that was going to happen. And Naomi beat Candice in her match. Cody and Gunther had a confrontation which led to them brawling, and Cody got taken out with Lieutenant Kaiser, so they got like a tag match with him and Orton teaming up against him next week. So the rest of SmackDown was all right. The opener, I really did like the opener with Orton. Orton and Triple H. I really did like that, and I was liking the match 7, but then the finish just kind of, it was kind of pointless to me. That they went that direction, but I figured it was gonna be a triple threat anyway. But it's like to have that many good matches and then you end the 7th match like that. It's like whatever. But this is what I mainly want to talk about though. Motor City Machine Guns win the titles, and we finally get an embracement between Jimmy and Jay. I do still think though that Jimmy and Jay still need to be separate. Like as far as I do still think like after you do this match of Survivor Series, they don't need to necessarily team up regularly again. They could team up on occasion, but I don't think they need to team up regularly because they pretty much done it all as a tag team. Like they've won the titles multiple times. They even beat the New Day's record as the longest reigning tag team champions. The New Day had like a 484-day reign or something like that. They beat that record. As of last year, they beat that record and held even longer title reigns. So I don't think they need to win those belts anytime soon together. I think they should keep them separate and just build them up as single stars. Even though Jimmy hasn't really won anything by himself, but I think they should just do that. I don't think they should just put them together consistently now because Jay's gotten so over by himself, and they're no longer identified as who is who. Like it's an actual identity for both Jimmy and Jay now. And it mainly happened, during that time Jimmy was hurt during the pandemic era, or as they call it, the Thunderdome era, during that period when he was feuding with Roman. Then that's really when that happened. That's when Jay was able to, break out on his own during that period. And since then, he's really like distinguished himself from Jimmy. So I don't think that they should keep them together consistently. I think they should just like for this, have them team be together for Survivor Series, but at the same time, you don't have to have them together like regularly teaming up again. I think you could still work with having them separate. I think you could still do that. But yeah, that's just mainly what I wanted to talk about. Motor City Machine Guns win the tag team titles, and the Uso brothers reunite, and it's only a matter of time before we see Jay and Roman make amends. So this is definitely going to go down. And that's pretty much it, guys. Sign off, Remaster Flex. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Peace.